by addressing many issues such as the protection of intellectual property, promoting the development and use of technology, facilitating foreign investment, and improving the quality of life by addressing social issues. The part-built physical structures appear to be abandoned by the budgeting process. The human resource base is being terrorized by the stress of uncertainty in these organizations. No country like ours can progress in a meaningful way in today's information age without a developed communication infrastructure. ICT has transformed and revolutionized many businesses and economies. The national imperative, therefore, should be to expand and enhance access to and adoption of state-of-the-art ICT infrastructure, while developing our people to exploit those capabilities of this vehicle. The primary strategic intent in developing Tamana Intech Park is to progress the agenda of sustainable diversification of the local economy, which would be realized through returns to the GDP by fostering the development of new industries and job creation from business activities on and off the park. The defined roles of Tamana Intech Park in progressing the country's economic development agenda include: 1. To be the first science and technology park in the Caribbean. So we are ahead of the game. 2. To be the premier institution for academic research as well as development facilities that are critical for diversifying the non-energy export base and facilitating industrial expansion. 3. To house the main campus of the University of Trinidad and Tobago for our young people. 4. To accommodate national and international organizations and institutions. 5. To be the main platform and model for a knowledge-driven economy through the capture of viable industries and the creation of job opportunities for highly skilled citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. While it is recognized that this project has a pivotal role to play in the country's development, it is but one aspect of other efforts that are required to achieve the much sought-after sustainable diversification. It would be a tragedy of immense proportion if this vision and effort, as well as the investment already made, is sacrificed on the altar of political pettiness, if only because it had a gestation under the PNM. It is our fear, and the country should also fear, that the silence of the Minister of Finance, coupled with the expressed hostility of some of his colleagues, this escape hatch into real diversification is about to be closed through a lack of understanding on the part of the government. These fears can only be allayed if the Minister of Finance identifies the relevant support for the effort and make the necessary comforting statements of commitment to Tamana Intech Park and the University of Trinidad and Tobago initiative. The substantive ministers just do not understand. They don't get it, Mr. Minister of Finance. It falls to you to save the day. The people of Trinidad and Tobago should take note of the fact that this government has embarked on a program to build an extension of UWI in Debe, a program which is either absent or very difficult to find in the national budget of 2012. Even while this is so, the government announces in this budget another university program in Tobago without the necessary visible financial allocation. Mr. Speaker, we know how to take that. Mr. Speaker, criticism is always going to be necessary. It's always going to be an ingredient of public scrutiny if we are to get the best out of ourselves, and even at the personal and national level. However, Mr. Speaker, sometimes in the political arena, we can become overly critical and replace the need for balanced criticism with outright demonization. When this happens, such practitioners find themselves not being able to turn back, even though disaster beckons. They then find themselves having to slavishly defend for the sake of saving face or disowning their own progeny through naked untruths or stilting revisionism. Such is the situation that the current government has found itself in, Mr. Speaker, as it seeks to grapple with a number of important public policy issues facing the people of Trinidad and Tobago at this time. one of the biggest problems the people of Trinidad and Tobago face today is the government of Trinidad and Tobago. This phenomenon is best demonstrated by our very presence in this building this morning, this afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am sure that it will surprise you and will surprise most people in Trinidad and Tobago to know that after all that has been said and is being said about the construction of these tall buildings, that they are symbolic of the worst of Trinidad and Tobago and symbolic of the worst of PNM governance, that this waterfront project was in fact a UNC initiative. In fact, this project of the waterfront development was a UNC initiative. Almost, thank you, Mr. Speaker, almost signed, sealed, and delivered to RGM in 2001. As Minister of Planning and Development in early 2002, I had the project reviewed by Kamal Mankey, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, and a report was presented which showed by analysis that whilst the project was worthy of support, the structure and shareholding and the inputs left the state with the short end of the stick. On the basis of this report, the PNM Cabinet was advised and RGM was advised that the gift was withdrawn. Cabinet placed the project in the hands of UDCOT with a mandate to manage this UNC concept project, which was the high-rise hotel, the car park, the Superior Office Tower, not this one. The only significant change the PNM made to the concept was the addition of this Tower D, in which we now reside. This came about when the PNM took steps to pursue the idea of establishing an international financial center, an IFC. And this was supposed to have been housed in here, and that's why this tower was built. Here was a government, after review, executing a project initiated by its predecessor for the benefit of Trinidad and Tobago. The UNC coalition will do well to learn something from this if they are to serve the people as they profess that they want to do. If you listen to PNM detractors in the government, you would not believe what I just told you, Mr. Speaker. But the documents are there to prove. They're at the Ministry of Finance and at the Cabinet Secretariat. As far as political expediency goes, these buildings were labeled as extravagant, ego massages of demented minds in the PNM, their own UNC project. From my own standpoint, there is no fundamental difficulty with converting a moribund waterfront with its grimy galvanized sheds being transformed into economic infrastructure and usable, saleable office space. The difficulty most people had was the demand for necessary accountability within the state enterprise, and that should be manifested through efficiency in construction and through proper procurement practices, which are to be geared to eliminate favoritism and opportunities for corruption. Where such conditions appear to be lacking, I make no apologies for demanding it. But, Mr. Speaker, where does that leave us as a people? Have we learned anything? When the Minister of Finance spoke about the land for development at Invaders Bay, he went out of his way to mention that this is prime real estate. That just happened to be prime real estate.
Honourable members, at this point in time we'll want to suspend for lunch, and before we do so, may I advise all members that during the luncheon period we are going to be conducting further tests to ensure that the technical glitches that we experienced early on today never repeat themselves. And so, to facilitate this exercise, we are going to be removing all the drawers attached to your respective desks. and we'll ask you that if you have any personal items, if you can remove them, so that during our luncheon period, we'll be able